Hello, my name is Reverend Christina Branum-Martin, and I'm the interim minister here at the fellowship. It is so good to be with you. Each week, this community comes together to participate in worship, music, and reflection. This is where we seek to have our hearts opened and our imaginations fired. This is the place that reminds us that we are connected to one another and to all living things. If you're joining us today for the first time, welcome. Our building is closed to large gatherings still, which includes Sunday morning worship. But we are starting to gather in person for small groups. We're joining together for Wednesday night Vesper services and the sharing of joys and concerns. Join us. If you would like information on how to do so, please contact our office so that you can sign up for our newsletter. And you can get all the links for things that are still happening online and dates and details for things that are happening together. This fellowship is a religious community grounded in the heritage and principles of Unitarian Universalism. We seek to create loving community, inspire joy and spiritual growth, and support courageous action. All are welcome regardless of religious background, political persuasion, ethnicity, age, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. If you have a desire to explore questions of truth and meaning and are respectful of our diversity of people and beliefs, you found a kindred spirit here. If you'd like more information, please reach out to us with links on our website, uufc.org. Here are a few announcements for this week. On Saturday, July 10th, in the morning at 9 a.m. on, we are going to be cleaning up our buildings and grounds to get ready for us to come back together in the fall. We cross our fingers that the numbers for COVID testing stays low and that we are able to gather again in person for worship. Our hope, our plan, is for that to be on August 29th. So may we clean up our building, get our religious education rooms ready and set up. May we clean up the grounds and plant flowers and hope that we are together again. On Wednesday night at 5:30, we are going to gather for Vespers between now and the end of August. And that will be a chance for us to share our joys and concerns in person. We have bingo still online on Thursday nights. We've got a novel circle going, and this month we're reading Call My Name, Clemson by Bryn McLean. If you'd like information about that, contact our office. Right now that is meeting by Zoom. And next month their book is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Let us begin worship together with these opening words by Summer El-Baiti. It is called A Chalice Lighting for Liminal Times. In betwixt and in between we move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what can become and what can be. We light this chalice as a symbol of courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this, and not that, with patience and faith and love and hope that this time will pass, like the sun that moves in between rising and setting, reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between. Now the Powell family will light the chalice.
Hi, my name's Rhonda Powell. I'm the chair of the RE committee at the UUFC. This is my son Finn and my daughter Remy. And we're here this morning to light our chalice. And we hope you'll join us in reciting the words of our unison affirmation. We gather together in the spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to care for one another.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain,
for purple mountains, majesties above thy fruited plain. America, America, God shed much grace on thee. So spread the love sent from above, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful, thy immigrants who hail from every land.
their hope and heart and diligence, like gifts from God's own hand.
America, America,
Thy grace,
thy grace
shall
yet remain
to
greet the poor
who
reach this shore with open arms again.
Oh, beautiful, oh, Mother Earth, I'll nestle at your breast.
Just as we sing with love and pride, so all nations are blessed. Yes, America, America, alone cannot abide. No, God gives thee pause
To
mend thy flaws with truth, thy only guide. Oh, beautiful, thou working folk built cities till thy soil. Proud Africans in bloody chains, the wealth built from
their
their toil. Yes, Lord. America, America, God shed much grace on thee. Yes. So spread the love sent from above,
from sea to
shining sea.
Bring
Bring
sisterhood, bring
brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, yes.
Good morning. It's good to be with you all again. Today is July 4th, 2021. But some people just call today the 4th of July, and many people will be celebrating by getting together with family and friends and having picnics and ice cream and watching fireworks. What are people celebrating when they get together today? Some of you probably said Independence Day, and some of you might have said that we are celebrating our country's birthday. We call the 4th of July our country's birthday because it was on July 4th, 1776, that the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, which was a document that declared that the 13 American colonies were now free from the rule of Great Britain. Of course, it wasn't as easy as simply saying, "we are now free," and it took many more years of war for the United States to really become an independent country. And even though the country was now free from British rule, many of the people in the country weren't free at all. Many of them were still slaves. It would take another document, the Emancipation Proclamation, and another war, the Civil War, to legally free those enslaved people. But their struggle didn't end there either. And it didn't end with the Civil Rights Movement 100 years later. In fact, it's still going on today. Our story today takes place in the time between those two documents and those two wars. It's about a young boy who grew up a slave, but never stopped dreaming of freedom. In order to become free, he had to do an extraordinary thing. After the story, we're going to hear a special song. As you watch and listen to the video, I invite you to think about this young boy's journey and the journey our country is still on. Henry's Freedom Box, a true story from the Underground Railroad. By Ellen Levine, illustrated by Kadir Nelson. Henry wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their birthdays. Henry and his brothers and sisters worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family, but Henry's mother knew things could change. "Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They are torn from the trees like slave children are torn from their families." One morning the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed the wide staircase. The master lay in bed with only his head above the quilt. He was very ill. He beckoned them to come closer. Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat fast. Maybe the master would set him free. But the master said, "You are a good worker, Henry. I am giving you to my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie." Henry nodded, but he didn't say thank you. That would have been a lie. Later that day, Henry watched a bird soar high above the trees. "Free bird, happy bird," Henry thought. Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves swirled in the wind. Henry worked in his new master's factory. He was good at his job. "Do not tear that tobacco leaf," the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked the boy with a stick. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you. Henry was lonely. One day he met Nancy, who was shopping for her mistress. They walked and talked and agreed to meet again. Henry felt like singing, but slaves didn't dare sing in the streets. Instead, he hummed all the way home. Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When both their masters agreed, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon there was a little baby, then another, and another. Henry knew that they were very lucky. They lived together even though they had different masters. But Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. "I'm afraid he will sell our children," she said. Henry sat very still. Henry worked hard all morning. He tried hard to forget what Nancy had said. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No!" cried Henry. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco," the boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. A large group of slaves was tied together. The owners shouted at them. Henry looked for his family. "Father! Father!" Henry watched his children disappear down the road. Where was Nancy? He saw her the same moment she saw him. When he wiped away his tears, Nancy, too, was gone. Henry no longer sang. He couldn't hum. He went to work, and at night he ate supper and went to bed. Henry tried to think of happy times, but all he could see were the carts carrying away everyone he loved. Henry knew he would never see his family again. Many weeks passed. One morning Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of a tree into the open sky, and Henry thought about being free. But how? As he lifted a crate, he knew the answer. He asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a white man who thought slavery was wrong. They met early the next day at an empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. "I will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves," he said. James stared at the box, then at Henry. "What if you cough and someone hears you?" "I will cover my mouth and hope," Henry said. Dr. Smith wrote on the box, "To William H. Johnson, Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania." Henry would be delivered to friends in Philadelphia. Then he printed on the crate in big letters, "This side up, with care." Henry needed an excuse to stay at home, or the work boss would think he had run off. James pointed to Henry's sore finger, but Henry knew it wasn't bad enough. He opened a bottle of oil of vitriol. "No!" cried James. Henry poured it on his hand. It burned his skin to the bone. Now the boss would have to let him stay home. Dr. Smith bandaged Henry's hand. They arranged to meet the next morning at 4 o'clock. The sun was not yet up when Henry climbed into the box. "Ready," he said. James nailed down the lid. Dr. Smith and James drove to the station. The railway clerk tipped the box over and nailed a paper to the bottom. Dr. Smith begged the clerk to be careful, but they didn't listen. They threw the box into the baggage car. Hours passed. Henry was lifted up and thrown again. Upside down! He heard waves splashing. This must be the steamboat headed for Washington, D.C. The ship rode smoothly, but Henry was still upside down. Blood rushed to his head. His face got hot. His eyes ached. He thought his head would burst, but he was afraid to move. Someone might hear him. "I'm tired of standing," someone said. "Why don't we move that box and sit on it?" said another. Henry held his breath. Could they be talking about his box? Henry was pushed. The box scraped the deck. Now he was on his right side. Now on his left. And suddenly, right side up. "What do you think is in here?" said the first man. "Mail, I guess," said the other. "I am mail," thought Henry, "but not the kind they imagine." Henry was carried off the steamboat and placed in a railroad car, this time head up. He fell asleep to the rattling song of the train wheels. He awoke to loud knocking. "Henry, are you all right in there?" "All right," he answered. The cover was pried open. Henry stretched and stood up. 4 men smiled at him. "Welcome to Philadelphia." At last, Henry had a birthday. March 30th, 1849, his first day of freedom. And, from that day on, he also had a middle name. Everyone called him Henry Box Brown.
His
burning inside, the hurting and the suffering. Minds creating anger, fear and pain, suffocating our times. The tougher it gets, the rougher social media cries. But we see to it that we tweeting only negative lines. We're sick and tired of history, but repeating it twice. Greed, anger and violence, clearly stealing our nights. Feeling it tight between the shoulders, with a chill in the spine. Pinching myself, waking up, trying to stop the rewind and move forward towards stories, overcoming our fears. Choosing love over hate, praying, trading hugs over tears. There's only one choice, breaking down the walls and repair every broken heart on this planet till there's no longer fear.
Walls can't hold us in. Fear can't keep us down. Love will rise again. Yeah, it's rising right now. We shall overcome.
Every time I think it's gonna take much longer,
We shall overcome.
every time I question, am I getting stronger?
We have just begun.
Gonna make a change, we gotta push much farther.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Young Gandhi couldn't fathom how to deal with himself when he was thrown off the train and the pain that he felt. Mrs. Parks disrespected, dragged into jail because of the color of her skin, organs, tissues, and cells. One day, a young girl was shot on a bus by a man, a terrorist, part of the Taliban. He said, "On this land, you have no right to stand for what you believe in. Girls have no chance here." Well, now, that's just the story of three souls who shook our planet after being down on their knees. And it's not gonna stop. Those seeds have now become trees, and as human beings, we'll keep on digging till we find peace.
Yeah, the cynics always say that nothing ever changes. The human nature's bound to stay the same. But it couldn't be more plain that violence never pays, injustice never stays. It's bound to fade away. What if history awaits? What if today's the day? We already know the way, so let's all lead the way. We shall overcome.
Every time I think it's gonna take much longer,
We shall overcome.
every time I question, am I getting stronger?
We have just begun.
Gonna make a change, we gotta push much farther.
We shall overcome.
We shall overcome. Come on now. Longer.
We shall overcome.
Every time I question, am I getting stronger?
We shall overcome.
Make a change, we gotta push much farther.
Someday.
'Cause I'm feeling it deep in my heart.
Deep in my heart.
I do believe.
I do believe.
I do believe.
We shall someday.
Come on, put your hearts together. Here we go. Woo! I knew it. God had a plan for us to do it. To hit rock bottom before we rise and continue. To first learn greed before we learn to be human. To do wrong deeds before we learn to spread beauty. There's always a plan, and now it's time to take a stand for the rights of the planet, every woman and man. We ain't gonna stop, only growing our demands for all beings to feel peace in every heart and land. Thank you, Lord, for the strength and the courage to bring us together and keep our souls nourished. These tough times will only drown in our chorus, cause we all believe that the truth is before us. We shall overcome this pain. We shall overcome this day. We pray for love to lead the way.
We shall overcome.
Please share with me in the ritual of joys and concerns. I light this candle in celebration of a grandchild. Bing and Nancy celebrate their grandson who graduated from from high school with honors, who placed in state shot put, and who heads off to college in the fall. What grand celebrations. This candle is lit after the loss of a friend. The friend, Pam, died on June 15th after an extensive battle with cancer. And while in Clemson, Pam dedicated many hours to the Memorial Garden and to the UUFC grounds. She will be missed by all who knew and loved her. There will be a memorial service in the fall. I light this final candle for all those joys and concerns that are held silently in our hearts. What touches one of us touches all of us. We are grateful for these connections that enable us to remember, to celebrate, to love, and to care.
Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love, where never kings connive, nor tyrants scheme that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be the land where every man is free. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on people's lives, we must take back our land again. America! Oh, yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me. And yet I swear this oath. America will be.
As I record this service, fireworks are going off outside my window. You may hear them as I read the sermon. For the 4th of July, fireworks are an American tradition, and this extends to the weekend of that celebration. I remember gathering with my family as a child to sit on blankets in the park as the sun would set and watch displays of light and color and sound in the skies above. Patriotic music would play. It was a happy time in celebration of the birth of our nation and the principled commitment to freedom. I want to revel in patriotism and feel a part of something larger than myself. I want to celebrate this country. I want to pass on to my children a sense of belonging to something meaningful and good. Yet I can share with honesty that the 4th of July is a hard holiday for me. It is an annual reminder that the ideals of this country have yet to be reached. I want our country to become the America that Langston Hughes refers to in his reading. I want to teach my children about the goals of freedom and justice that we have set forth and the work it takes to bring them into being. I want them to understand these goals and to be able to acknowledge the raw truth of the history of this country, which includes the injustices of the slave trade and the current injustices held in place by the structures of white supremacy. This is the paradox I straddle, and perhaps you too share this recognition. On 4th of July, I find meaning and direction through this paradox within my Unitarian Universalist faith. Unitarian Universalism honors each person's inherent worth and dignity. It upholds the structures of democracy and the importance of allowing for one's personal truth and meaning. As a Unitarian Universalist, I am called upon on a daily basis to live into these principles. I know I am a better person for this calling. This work will continue in my daily life in this country as a mother, as a voter, as a minister. This work will continue into my ministry here at the fellowship. This year's General Assembly of Unitarian Universalists just concluded last week, and we were called to prophetic action by the statement of conscience that passed with 91% of the delegate votes. The statement of conscience is titled Undoing Systemic White Supremacy, a Call to Prophetic Action. We UUs have made it clear, my friends. It reads, seeking universal justice and equity, we call upon the Unitarian Universalist Association, Unitarian Universalist individuals and congregations, to actively engage in undoing systemic white supremacy in all of its manifestations. Systemic white supremacy refers to the embedded, institutional, and pervasive nature of racism, white privilege and racial bias, and oppression in our society. We acknowledge the impact of systemic white supremacy as intersectional, meaning it impacts people differently across race, income, class, gender, age, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, religion, disability, and more. As Unitarian Universalists, we decry the ways in which the intersectional impact of systemic white supremacy divides our human family by privileging some groups over others, and thereby generating resistance to the common goal of universal equity and justice. Systemic white supremacy is a direct affront to every one of our principles. Most egregious, we are losing the lives of Black, Indigenous, and people of color all across the nation, from long-standing ills of police violence to hate crimes to emerging crises of the pandemic due to the evil of systemic white supremacy. Therefore, as Unitarian Universalists, we must engage in urgent action to confront the moral crisis of our time. Undoing white supremacy requires multifaceted, long-term efforts for change. This includes not only engaging in actions beyond our denomination, but also internal work within the denomination to overcome the ways in which systemic white supremacy is woven into our group cultures, our relationships, and our individual ingrained biases. This call to prophetic action affirms the wealth of knowledge and vital guidance detailed in the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change report, titled Widening the Circle of Concern. UU organizations and individuals are called to implement the recommendations in this report as a means to release ourselves from the limits of systemic white supremacy, which are embedded in our structures and habits, so as to allow UUs to live our shared values more fully and freely. We will be reading this book in this coming year so that we at the fellowship can learn more fully how to live into this call for prophetic action. UU colleague Paula Cole-Jones calls on all of us. She says, "Now, we have to learn what it means to live into this statement of conscience and to become it day by day." Join me in the work of living into this call, a call to finding the means of true justice and equity in our congregations, in our association, and then allowing it then to flourish into our lives and into this country. I know I will be a better person for living into this call for prophetic action. I close today with a prayer from Reverend Jack Mendelson. When we are confronted with the face of cynicism, darkness, brutality all around us and within us, may we seek to align ourselves with a living community that would affirm rather than despair, that would think and act rather than simply adjust and succumb. In doing so, we invite the spirit of our own humanity and the healing powers under, around, through, and beyond it to give us the nerve and the grace, the toughness and the sensitivity to search out the truth that frees and the life that maketh all things anew. Amen, and may it be so. May your July 4th be a celebration of all that can be.
As for me and my house, you will find us serving truth. As for me and my house, you will find us serving truth. As for me and my house, you will find us serving truth. Truth for all right now. As for me and my house, you will find us serving peace. As for me and my house, you will find us serving peace. As for me and my house, you will find us serving peace. Peace for all right now. As for me and my house, you will find us serving love. As for me and my house, you will find us serving love. As for me and my house, you will find us serving love. Love for all right now. Let there be peace for all right now. Let's speak the truth to all right now.
As we come to the close of this service, we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, my friends.